Welcome back to On Texas Football's Tuesday night Longhorn Livestream presented by Andy Ludicky. I'm your host, Amanda Atwell, joined by CJ Vogel and Jeff Howe. It is A&M Hate Week, one that's been circled on the calendar for a while. A lot to talk about. Y'all pop into any questions you have into the chat. Super Chats jump to the top of our list. A lot to get to. And starting off, college football playoff rankings just came out. And I mean, I didn't have many surprises here. Did you guys have any surprises here?
No. Michigan jumps Texas. I understand, or I could see either way. Probably not a big deal there, but look, 9-2, Texas 8-3. There's a difference in records, two big time programs, but Texas needs a lot of help here. You see them ranked number 16 in the latest college football playoff. Not completely dead, but look, the cord is barely hanging in. The plug still on life support. They don't have much chance here.
Yeah, to me, this is, and the committee will never admit it, I think they're positioning that if Michigan does beat Ohio State, it's probably a lot easier to move Michigan up from 15 into the top 10 than it would be if they were 16th or lower.
Yeah, is there any route, you guys? I mean, Alabama lose to Auburn. Vanderbilt has to lose to Tennessee. There's a lot. Texas obviously has to win this weekend, no shot.
Well, and then you're probably looking at even down the road like BYU losing to Tech in the Big 12 championship game.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a lot. But, here's the deal. Like, this is exactly what we laid out for everybody, right? Like, I know when the rankings first came out, 9-3 Texas is in, and I heard that from a lot of talking heads. But, hey, if you go 9-3, you are going to need a lot of help. And here you are. You're in a position. If you finish 9-3, you're going to need a lot of help. And what's not helping Texas, what really hurts is the further away you get from that Florida loss, it just looks worse and worse and worse because Florida is terrible.
Yeah, do you feel like it'd be different if like the three losses were like Ohio State, Georgia, and A&M? Do you feel like the playoff might look at that a little differently?
No.
Maybe.
You're still 9-3, and there's still a lot of teams that aren't 9-3 who are probably more deserving based off of winning also some really tough games. And the schedule for Texas ended up being a little tougher than maybe we anticipated going into the season, right? You have the number 1, the number 3, the number 4 teams. It's tough to play that, not to mention Oklahoma, which you've beat, but you still have to win games if you want to be considered a good football team. You can't get by just saying, hey, played some tough teams, man. We played them close. Give us a shot. And that's not how this sport works, and that's not how it ever really should be intended to work, right? You shouldn't be rewarded for losing close or losing to good teams. No, that's not it. So I understand the hypotheticals, and I understand that, hey, if Texas goes out and beats A&M, that's a big-time win, right? Is that enough to get Texas into the playoff? Probably not, because, again, other teams elsewhere have taken care of business. They've beat the teams that they were supposed to do. What was really going to be beneficial for Texas here is if Alabama ended up beating Oklahoma, right? They needed, and they still need Tennessee to end up beating Vanderbilt. You would have the more impressive resume over Tennessee. You'd obviously have the win over Vanderbilt. You'd also have the head-to-head over Oklahoma. That's what you needed to happen. On top of that, look, now Oklahoma and Alabama sitting there 9-2 on the season, both of which are playing teams who offensively can't move the ball on me and my 10 closest friends. They should win this Saturday, right? They should be locked in. Now, weird things happen on rivalry week, so we'll see. But right now, I see this as a very unlikely opportunity for the Longhorns to get into the playoff, and that goes back to winning the games you're supposed to win.
Yeah, that on top of that, CJ, if you're looking at this like you look at the NCAA tournament bubble for basketball, Texas would be in the next 4 out. Like, they're not even in the first 4 out right now. So that's just another way to look at the show. What a long shot it is. And look, man, I'm with you just from the standpoint of the Florida loss to me. And we'll never know, like, unless we're in there, we'll never know what the committee thinks, right? But how I perceive they look at Texas is losing the Florida game and the way, because it shifted as it's going on, looking at the Florida game and the way they lost the Georgia game, like margin of victory against Georgia, I think all of that brings in, okay, let's look at their other wins. And now this is where a metric like game control can be used against you. Like, okay, You had to go to overtime to beat Kentucky. You had to come back from 3 scores down to beat Mississippi State in overtime. You almost squandered a big lead against Vanderbilt. So I think the nature of the Georgia loss and then losing to Florida, that brings in all the other stuff for discussion.
Yeah,
I do think it's interesting that kind of the most comfortable wins, if you can call Vanderbilt a comfortable win, or two of the most comfortable wins, came against teams that are ranked in the top 25 in OU and Vanderbilt. And then just the ones on the road where you're just hoping the overtime goes in your favor. I think looking back at those is really, really difficult as well. And I see a lot of comments about this of just, we should only schedule cupcakes for non-conference games. Looking back on this, I don't want to say I've changed my method of thought here, but going into a 9-game SEC schedule, I can see that argument coming up again to where, why should you schedule these big non-conference games in Michigan, the Ohio State, the Notre Dames? Why should you schedule those?
Pad your resume if you win them, right? It's great to get tested for the SEC as well. I think it's, I get the argument. If Texas played, name a school, and they end up going 4-0 in the non-conference, right? They're probably sitting right where Oklahoma and Alabama are, right? Probably right in that 9-10 spot. But that's not really the allure in what Texas wants to do, right? They want the big attraction. They want the opportunity to play the best. And look, let's say you beat Ohio State. Well, then that Florida loss is kind of pushed away. You know why? Because you have a win over the number 1 team on the country on the road. There's a trade-off there. You don't get the luxury of playing the tough games and throwing that game away because you lost, while still saying, hey, well, if we won, all is well, right? No, you play these games because they're great for the sport, and that's what you hope your team can turn into being, is a competitive team that can beat anybody on the field. And that just it wasn't who Texas was this year.
Yeah, and I'll add to that too. Like Alabama, I think is a good example of what we're talking about. Like, they schedule Florida State. Like when you schedule these games, you don't know the caliber opponent you're going to be playing. But like they went to Tallahassee and got embarrassed. But what has Georgia done since? What has Alabama done since then? They went to Athens and beat Georgia. They beat Vanderbilt at home. They beat Missouri on the road before Bo Perbula got hurt, when they were still somewhat at full strength. So, I mean, Alabama, aside from the loss to Oklahoma, they've taken care of their business. What the Ohio State loss would have done for Texas is, if there was that glut of 10-2 teams, if Texas was in that glut, then it'd be like, okay, yeah, one of your losses is a 7-point non-conference loss to the number 1 team in our rankings. You're getting bumped up above, a 2-loss Big 12 team or a 2-loss ACC team or whatever.
I mean, y'all can answer this one. Right now I'm in the no crew. I feel like y'all are probably in the same boat as me.
Yeah, no, I don't think Texas is making the playoff. And to answer your second part, Sark said it best when he said, who ranked us preseason number 1? The program that just went back-to-back college football playoffs, that had a lot returning when it came to star power, right? You had an All-American on the defensive line, your edge, your linebacker, and your safety room, not to mention a cornerback 1. You had a quarterback that was a former number 1 overall preseason, 5-star caliber guy. You had some weapons. You had the SEC's leading rusher return. You had a talented football team. Now, you could debate if it was the number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5 team in the country. I understand that. But I don't think anybody was expecting Texas to miss the playoffs, not inside of Moncrief. And if they were, then shoot, they lied through their teeth, Jeff, when they told us that, hey, our goal is to go win an SEC championship and make the college football playoff and compete for a national championship. That's for sure. So, no, it was a disappointing year. And, hey, you can go out and beat A&M. That's great. You'll be 9-3. I don't think it changes much.
And I'm not preparing mentally for Texas to lose the game to Texas A&M. But I'm kind of with you, CJ. Like the difference between 8-4 and 9-3. I mean, you're not going to accomplish one of your primary goals, which was getting to Atlanta to play for the SEC championship. Like that is gone. That is not going. There's no mathematical way that can happen. And you're probably not going to be in the playoff. So if you're in the Citrus Bowl at 9-3 or 8-4, what's the difference at that point?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of how I'm viewing it. Who cares what your record is if you make the playoff? Who cares what your record is if you didn't make the playoff? It's almost it's one of two answers to a test. You either made the playoff, good season. You didn't make the playoff, bad season. That's where I'm at with Texas. And I think that's how Texas fans should evaluate seasons moving forward, because you have the talent, you have the resources, and you believe to have the coaching staff, right, that can get you there. And I think they do. That should be the standard, as we've talked about. And over the last 2 years, that was the standard.
Here's the last thing I'll say about the scheduling. And I know it's a different dynamic because you're in the SEC now, but you got into the playoff in 23 because you scheduled Alabama in non-conference and went to Tuscaloosa and won that game. You got a head start, a leg up on everybody else when the initial rankings came out last year because you went to Ann Arbor and played Michigan. Yeah, Michigan wasn't what we thought they were going to be or what they had been, but you still got credit for going to Ann Arbor and winning that game. Again, I think with playoff expansion, that's the only way you keep the non-conference schedule. You keep scheduling somebody really tough from the Big 10 or the Big 12 or the ACC or whatever in non-conference is if it's a 16-team playoff, then at that point, 9-3 teams are going to get in. And you better believe at that point, then strength of schedule and who you scheduled in non-conference and all that stuff, that is really going to matter at that point.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we'll talk a little bit more about the game coming up this week right after we hear from our friends at myperfectfranchise.net. Are you looking to diversify or new ways to make money? Andy Ludicky at myperfectfranchise.net can help you do just that by finding new businesses that will fit your time allotment and financial goals. Call him or email him to learn more. He's got a really cool process that identifies the perfect fit for you. Email him now at Andy at myperfectfranchise.net. So big game this week. If y'all have any questions about it, make sure you get them in. We'll get your super chats knocked out quickly. So this one, a lot of talk. I think I can't remember if you posted this, CJ, about the stat comparison between Marcel Reed and Arch Manning, of just how these players are actually a little bit more similar than you would think in their numbers that they've put up this season so far. Now, you can nitpick just the different opponents they have played to put up these different numbers, but I do think there is something to be said for this, just with how Arch has looked over the past couple games versus how he looked in the beginning of the season.
The only real thing I have to say on this is more a look ahead to 2026, because if Arch's numbers are rivaling that of a Heisman contender based off of what we saw the first 8 games of the year, then good God, I think next year he's going to put up some crazy numbers. I do. And that starts, obviously, if Texas can protect Arch. They found some rhythm over the last month or so. But he's averaging 330 passing yards over the last 4 games. He has 14 total touchdowns, 1 interception. Like that was kind of what I thought we would see a little bit more of this year, right? And I understand it. Like the season hasn't gone offensively the way that we anticipated. But to your point, man, I mean, these numbers aren't far off from what many are considering to be a top 5 Heisman contender. I am not. But this is, again, where I thought Arch in this offense would be. And that's a lot of – I know folks don't want to hear it talking about 2026, but goodness, could you imagine a full year of Arch playing at the level that he's playing at right now? And I have no reason to think that he won't. That's exciting.
I'm not saying this as a knock on Marcel Reed, but I like the fact that Arch's numbers, they're not empty calorie statistics. Like, you needed him to throw for as many yards as CJ, you were in the booth for that one in Gainesville. Like, you needed Arch to throw some bombs and to get you back in that game in Gainesville. You needed him to do what he did in Starkville. You needed him to have that hot start against Vanderbilt and so on and so forth. So, yeah, I mean, I just more so than the numbers, I like the fact that we've seen Arch come out of the early season struggles, and now he's trending in the right direction as we get toward the end of the season. And again, I would love for Texas to beat Texas A&M. I'm not pushing the outcome of the game aside, but more so than how Texas finishes, I'm more excited about the way Arch is trending when we talk about 2026 than anything else.
Yeah, and with these numbers too, he played a game brain dead, basically. Well, not brain dead, but he was concussed for a game, right? He kind of came back, and that was one of the best games that he had all season. That's not an easy thing to do, is to, kind of go through the concussion symptoms, and come back immediately, and all of a sudden he's throwing for three bills. You're sitting there saying, wait a minute, he unlocked something. And that's he kind of joked about it too. He said, yeah, maybe I just needed to reset everything up top. And hey, credit to him. Whatever it takes. I'm not saying I want Arch to get another concussion, but hey, it was like y'all seen Rookie of the Year?
Yeah.
It's like when the kid breaks his arm and all of a sudden he's throwing 101. It's like, hey, something happened here.
Well, just if Henry Rowan Gardner's arc is any indication, just don't let Arch have another concussion. Just keep him good.
What a pull, Jeff.
Hey, man.
Yeah,
mid-90s kids sports movies. That's my wheelhouse right there.
That's hilarious.
What's interesting to me is I think I said this on the Moving Goalpost podcast this summer, just when we were kind of swimming in that land of unknowns, especially with Marcel Reed and just his unfortunate season last year, is that Marcel Reed was going to be as good as the tools around him. And I think we've seen this year, his offensive line is probably one of the best offensive lines in the country. And you can tell based on how comfortable he is. They found two great wide receivers in Mario Craver and Casey Concepcion. And so the tools around him are vastly improved from last year. So that lends to his success as well. And I think if Arch can find that, or if they can find some kind of similarity in the offensive line continuing to step forward and some more explosive players in the run game and receivers, then I'm pretty optimistic for Arch next year.
Yeah, I think you should be, right? Quarterbacks that return to the same system with the same coaches, with a lot of the same wide receivers, and Texas will have exactly that, right? Ryan Wingo, Emmett Mosley, Parker Livingston, all are true sophomores. There's going to be a lot of continuity there. That should, in turn to a lot of trust that grows as the year goes on, right? Those throwing sessions in the offseason. You should certainly hear about a pretty sizable jump for Arch into next year again, which is exciting. So, look, I know the season's not done. I know that we're kind of put the cart before the horse here. But I can't help but be excited for what Arch will be like in 2026 or even this Friday, because I think there's plenty of passing yards available for Texas if given the opportunity to sit back in a clean pocket.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of, I wanted to pull this comment up. Reed has a good running game to support him. It's okay. And there's the injury report, the SEC injury report came out a day early because of the short week today. And there is a significant name on the A&M side of this injury report, as well as Le'Veon Moss. He was originally aiming to get back by the Texas game, but I highly doubt he's going to be playing just based on who I've discussed. I highly doubt you'll see him. They held out.
You got a good source up there, Amanda?
Yeah, I got a decent source up there. I don't think we're going to be seeing him. I believe they held out Mario Craver and Ruben Owens in the Samford game as well, but they're both good to go. So Ruben Owens should be their lead running back. As for Texas, questionable Anthony Hill. I feel like that's kind of what we expected. And then obviously out first half, Ty Anthony Smith after that targeting call.
Yeah, Sark submitted that report on A-Hill to make it clear as mud, like what his status is going to be. So no need to give the Aggies anything. And man, they appealed the Ty Anthony Smith suspension. The appeal was denied. CJ, going back and watching that, like the thing that frustrates me, man, there's a lot of things that frustrate me with targeting, but I think the thing that frustrates me more than anything is, when the ball carrier lowers their strike zone for the defender to a point where like physics takes over, and it's like, how can you physically like avoid hitting him in the helmet? It's not a malicious hit. I don't see anything Ty Anthony Smith did wrong. It wasn't like a dirty hit. He didn't launch himself, but I mean, you can only get so low. And I wish you had the ability to legislate targeting like you do a flagrant 1 or a flagrant 2 in basketball.
Yeah, and my thing with targeting is, I mean, if you want to boot them for the rest of the game, boot them for the rest of a half, I get it. That's penalty served. But, I mean, you could essentially miss an entire game if you do so early in the third quarter. You can't do that in the first half. You only miss at most, 3 quarters, 3.5. So I don't know. I think targeting, I've never been a proponent of targeting, right? To your point, Jeff, you can do the yellow and red card in soccer and continue to call it a personal foul. But, for these kids who only get 12 games, to take them away for a bang play at times, I think it's ridiculous. I think it's and there's a clear difference to your point, and that's where the discrepancy comes in of a guy that's headhunting, looking to target and get somebody out of a football game versus a guy who, in Ty Anthony Smith's instance, was just looking to make a football tackle, looking to get his guy on the ground. And there's a reason why they call him Hurricane. He brings destruction all over the place. And that, unfortunately, was a play that will leave him sidelined for 2 quarters against Texas A&M.
Yeah, I definitely think the punishment doesn't match the foul, especially in this case. It seemed because I went to the game. I was watching I was a little bit far off. They wouldn't re-show the play in the stadium. I don't know if they generally do that, but from that, I just figured it was going to be called targeting. But from the hit, it didn't look like it was exceptionally malicious. And then I go back and rewatch it, and it almost just looked like it was because of the height difference between the 2 players is why it was called targeting. It didn't look like he was, I don't even know how to put it, ramming into him with his head. But yeah, so I don't know. I understand the need for safety when it comes to those kinds of tackles, but I just feel like there's too much of a gray area at this point. Like, you never know what's going to get called, what's going to get upheld, what's going to get overturned for me.
The most idiotic one I've seen in my time following the Texas program, covering the Texas program. I don't know if you guys remember, but I believe it was the 2017 Texas Bowl. Anthony Wheeler got a targeting penalty late in that game. So he had to miss the first half of the season opener in 2018 against Maryland. Like, on what planet does that make any sense where a suspension carries over to the next season?
It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, Jeff, why don't you tell us about our friends over at Duck Camp, and we'll get to some of your questions.
I sure will do that, Amanda, because Duck Camp makes gear for folks who live for being out there, whether that's at a duck blind at sunrise or on the 40 acres for a Saturday kickoff or Friday kickoff in this case this week. Born right here in Austin, Duck Camp builds best-in-class hunting and fishing apparel that works just as well for a full day in the field as it does for a long day of tailgating. From those sun protection shirts that keep you cool during those early season scorchers to their iconic Game Series hats that feel like instant classics, Duck Camp gear is ready for football season, hunting season, and every season in between. Get out there, stay out there, and hook them. Shop Duck Camp at duckcamp.com and on Texas Football Fam. Use the promo code ONTexas25. That's ONTexas25 for 25% off of your next order at duckcamp.com. And now let's hear from our friends at Advanced Pain Care with the help of a couple of lifetime Longhorns.
Pros know the pain stops here.
Physical therapy helps me as an athlete then and now. And do I still need therapy? Yes. Advanced Pain Care helps with that.
Injuries will stack up. They'll add up. You can't let those injuries get you down, and Advanced Pain Care has been very helpful for me.
We can help with whatever's got you down, from nerve damage to our spinal cord stimulator. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Same-day appointments available.
Advanced Pain Care. The pain stops here.
All right, thanks so much. Before we get to some of your questions, want to look at the Texas volleyball game, the SEC championship against Kentucky. I believe Kentucky just won the 3rd set. Is that correct?
They were just up 25-24. I had to step away, but you're absolutely correct. So we're headed to a 4th. Texas had an opportunity there. They were in the 3rd set, leading 19-16. So Kentucky's, they saved their match, headed to a 4th. We'll see if the Lady Longhorns can close it out here and take home a SEC championship. They look pretty good in the first 2 sets.
They're staying alive, and this is Kentucky's one of their few losses this season, so it would be extra sweet. Beat A&M, one of their losses, and beat Kentucky to win an SEC championship.
Take that, volleyball committee.
Yeah. At least we're definitely making the playoffs in one category.
CJ, are you hosting the bracket reveal on the channel for volleyball?
Yeah, I like volleyball. Fun fact, actually. It's a new one. I got the hat sitting to my left over here, but fun fact, I gave a little volleyball lesson as a college Division III volleyball lesson.
Okay.
Hey, look at you.
How about that? UT Tyler, making the team better.
Love that. I actually played UT Tyler in soccer, so surprising.
You lost.
Yeah, we did lose those games. We had a very, very bad team. Anyways, we'll get to some of your questions. We got a super chat. Thanks so much for the super chat. Jut 2019. Pressure Reed and he will make bad decisions. He almost threw 4 to 5 interceptions against South Carolina, but the Gamecocks have bricks for hands. Yes. I mean, I will say this first half of this game made me feel a little bit better about going into this weekend. I also just don't know if that first half can be considered an anomaly because it was basically a series of unfortunate events for A&M. It would be like they would get close to the end zone, he would throw another interception. They would try to take a field goal, it would doink off the upright. So with a grain of salt, they did come back in that game. But yes, I agree. Marcel Reed definitely struggles a bit more under pressure, but I mean, what quarterback doesn't? So,
yeah. Jeff, I don't know what you took away from that first half, but no one could catch Marcel Reed's passes. You know, he's 6 of 19, had an interception in there. I think he had a few drops from his own wide receivers. He threw the most uncatchable ball I've ever seen, and it wasn't really any of his fault. The guys just didn't come down with it. It was pretty remarkable.
I'll say this about the A&M offense, more so than the A&M defense. The A&M offense has faced some good defenses. You know, like they faced Missouri, faced LSU. So from a speed, athleticism, talent standpoint, I don't think they'll be shell-shocked by what Texas brings to the table. That said, man, my big thing, and just pressure is great, but two things, man. You can't have what happened in the first half of the Arkansas game, have a repeat of that where they just ran the ball down your throat and you look completely inept trying to stop the run. Like that's as bad a run defense as I've seen going back to PK's first year. Like that was brutal. And the second thing is for PK, like you've got to break some tendency. Like you've got to show different looks. You probably got to disguise a little bit better. Like if you've been saving something, this is the game to use it. So, and I think to the X factor for me for Texas on defense, CJ, we talked a little bit about this in the Sark press conference recap yesterday. Michael Taft played maybe the worst game we've seen him play since he's been a starter at Texas against Arkansas. And this is his last game at DKR. He doesn't want to leave like with that as a lasting impression. So I feel like we'll get the best version of Michael Taft on Friday. At least that's what I'm looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, they absolutely should. He spoke about it on Monday a little bit. He said, hey, this is a school I wanted to go to. This is the school that I'm proud to represent. For 5 years, I've gotten to put on this jersey and go from being a walk-on who had to wait, on the sideline to get a helmet and a jersey. I was number 36 to, hey, now I'm an All-American. Now this is my team. I'm a captain. I'm a leader. I bet there's no one in this locker room that wants to win this game more than Michael Taft. And I'm with you, Jeff. I think this is a game where he's going to come out guns a-blazing, very passionately ready for this game. And, I hope that trickles down to the remainder of the locker room because, look, regardless of whether or not you believe you have a chance at the college football playoff, this is a game where you don't want to lose. You don't want to give the upper hand to your biggest in-state rival with the thought that, hey, going into next year when you're expected to continue to compete for a national championship, they're going to have the upper hand on you. You don't want that. Not on home turf.
No, and I think for seniors and the guys that are draft eligible and some of them won't be back next year, you don't want the memory like your last game at DKR to be, man, not only do we lose to A&M, but we let them finish off a perfect regular season.
Yeah.
You don't want that.
I would hope, I feel like you said this, Jeff, after the Florida game, that you don't see the defense playing poorly 2 weeks in a row. Which, I mean,
you see them playing poorly 5 weeks in a row.
They did follow. I am just saying they followed up that with the OU game. So maybe, and the thing is with the atmosphere factor, because the atmosphere factor is a thing as far as the energy of the team goes. I got to say, as far as an attendee of a game, Arkansas did not feel like a rivalry to me. I mean, even in the first half when the game was close, it's nowhere comparable to the energy you feel at the Texas OU game.
No, not even close. No.
Hopefully this will be a more OU type environment, just fully home, which I feel like, I mean, it can only lend to good things for Texas, but Kyle Field's great home environment didn't really help them out last year. So just take that with a grain of salt.
I would imagine Arkansas felt kind of like that first Thanksgiving in 2012 when they've been going to the SEC and Texas scheduled TCU, and I was one of the idiots being like, oh yeah, it'll be the same. You could replicate it. And then I'm sitting there before kickoff and I'm like, dude, this sucks. It's like students aren't there. TCU doesn't have a big alumni base. It's not like they traveled and drove, so it was pretty freaking brutal. But as far as Texas being at home, I don't know. I'm trying to say this without sounding like an idiot. I don't think it's going to hurt A&M as much as it's going to help Texas, because CJ, you even asked Sark about this on Monday. Your offensive line, and I don't know if it's a communication thing, a comfort thing, or whatever, but this offensive line, the way it's constructed, they've been infinitely better at home and looked more together and not discombobulated at home than they have on the road.
Yeah, they have, and it's pretty interesting, and it's, again, kind of frustrating that Texas only had the 3 true home games in the SEC this year, but only 3 tackles for loss in the last 2 home games against Vanderbilt and Arkansas. And again, I know folks are going to point out Arkansas is not a great team, and I sound like a broken record continuing to say this, but Texas has played bad teams with bad fronts before, and it just didn't matter, And so with this starting 5 combination, if they're able to keep Texas ahead of the chains and allow them 3rd and mediums, 3rd and shorts, at least some 3rd and reasonables, A&M has the number 1 third down defense in the entire country. That's how you find the way to move the chains, and that's the exact formula Texas used to beat Oklahoma. So, hey, that's where it starts, is with your offensive line unit moving and displacing the line of scrimmage and keeping things short.
Yeah, and I'll back up your point too on being at home or playing Arkansas. Like, oh, well, it was against Arkansas. Yeah, like I've heard, plenty of Aggies and Sooners saying, oh, well, Arch tore up a terrible defense. Right. UTEP might have been his worst game of the year. Like, he wasn't great against San Jose State. So it's less about the opponent and more about, hey, week over week, he's continuing to get better.
Thank you, Matthew.
Those numbers are really small. It's kind of hard for me to read.
My glasses.
Yeah, I need my glasses.
These are the home away splits. There should be some splits for November as well. You see it here. Which one's home, Matthew? But the rushing yards at home are highlighted here. Texas 5-0 at home. You see, what is that? Almost 100 full yard difference playing at home and on the road. Pretty significant, if you ask me.
Yeah.
60 more yards on the ground, it looks like. 10% higher passing completion. Yeah, playing at home makes a pretty sizable difference here.
Yeah. And, what you were just saying, CJ, like Texas ran the ball in a terrible defense against Arkansas. Well, they couldn't move it. Hey, you look at those rushing yards, and a lot of that's some of the non-conference, but like, hey, everybody had to run the ball against Florida. Texas couldn't do it on the road. People would run the ball against Kentucky. Texas couldn't do it on the road. People would run the ball against Mississippi State. I would argue Sark wouldn't, but Texas at the end of the day couldn't run the ball against Mississippi State. So, and then they ran it against Vanderbilt. And honestly, like, I know the numbers for the Ohio State game are there, but I think Sark needs to call this game. If he calls this game the same way he called the Oklahoma game, I think Texas will have a chance, because that game was an ultimate test of patience for Sark. Like, your stuff rate in terms of percentage of non-sack rushing attempts you had that stopped at the line or behind the line of scrimmage, your stuff rate was 22%. 7 of your 31 non-sack rushing attempts were stuffed for no gain or lost yards. But Sark, and I think Trey Weiser, actually, his first 2 carries were for negative yards. But Sark stuck with it, and they started leaning on Oklahoma a little bit, and Arch got more comfortable, and you were able to have just enough balance that you needed against Oklahoma. Had the same thing against Vanderbilt. Against Arkansas, it didn't really matter what you want to do. I mean, Arch was throwing for 400 yards, so you didn't need to run the ball. But, yeah, on the road, like, you could not run it on the road against terrible defenses.
Yep, definitely. All right, we'll get to a couple more of your questions after we hear from our friend Mark Saunders. When it comes to protecting all your stuff, wouldn't it be great to have one place that protects it all? Here's some good news. Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders, serving the Austin and Round Rock area and all of Texas, is the only insurance agent you need. Everything from your home, car, and boat to your motorcycle, RV, and ATV. Call Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders' office today at 512-218-8571. Are you in good hands with more than 35 years of experience? You will be with Texas alum Mark Saunders. If you're looking for someone local to the Austin Round Rock area and all of Texas, give him a call at 512-218-8571. And our friends over at Culligan's, when it comes to the water your family drinks and uses every day, you don't want to cut corners. That's why for over 90 years, people have trusted Culligan. And here in Austin, Culligan Ultra Pure has been serving the community for more than 60 years. Culligan Ultra Pure provides high-quality residential water treatment at an affordable price, including reverse osmosis systems, water softeners, and UV purification lights. Whether your water comes from a well or a municipal source, Culligan has the perfect treatment solution for your home. And right now, you can schedule a free water test and save up to $600 when you mention On Texas Football. Culligan Ultra Pure proudly serves Austin, Corpus Christi, Victoria, Brownwood, Pampa, and Plainview. So don't wait. Call Culligan Ultra Pure today at 512-339-2378 to schedule your free water analysis. That's 512-339-2378, and make sure to ask for Michael. Better water starts with Culligan.
Hey, Amanda, real quick. First off, thank you for the ad read. Jeff, I got a question for you. It comes from Kyle here. You staying up late to watch the Foul Fest in Maui again tonight, Jeff?
I can't do. I've been dragging all day because I had to do coffee and football this morning because Jerry was out sick. So no,
you should have called in sick after watching all that last night.
If they were playing anybody but Chaminade, I would make an effort. But dude, that's the one thing about being in the Maui that sucks is if you lose that first round game and you have to play Chaminade, it's almost like it probably ends up hurting you in terms of your metrics at the end of the year. So you almost just wish you didn't. I wish we can get into feast week and the changing how tournaments have changed in tournaments like the Maui and CJ. We were texting last night because you were like, dude, the Maui field is terrible. I'm like, dude, have you seen the Battle for Atlantis field? That is hot garbage. Everybody went to Players Invitational, so you had to put Chaminade in the field this year. But yeah, that's the big drawback to being in the Maui if you lose that game and you're on that first game and you're on Chaminade side of the bracket.
All right, we got a super chat from 6019KB. Thank you so much. We won't make the playoffs, just beat the Aggies, play the young guys in the bowl game, get a head start in the portal, and prepare for next season. That is a nicer twist on the Aggies than what it is sometimes. But yeah, I mean, I agree. And we had another question that I feel like kind of plays in this. How much does this game matter for recruiting, especially in the state of Texas? I do think that's one thing you need to look at going into this game is you want that environment at DKR in front of recruits where you win. You are the team in the state of Texas that beats the other team in the state of Texas, the premier program in the SEC, of the two premier programs in the SEC that are in Texas. So I think that's definitely a factor as well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how many recruits show up, right? And there's going to be a few. Obviously, I wouldn't say it's going to be comparable to most home games, just in the sense that you're battling against Thanksgiving. You're battling against state football playoffs who are playing either that night on Friday or Saturday morning, right? So for a lot of your top prospects, they're probably still playing football inside the state. Now you can obviously get bragging rights for folks that watch it at home. And I think for this game specifically, that's one of those games where I think it carries more weight than attending the game, is because you hear it going to school when you get back on Monday, when you hear it when your family is watching football or talking about it over Thanksgiving brunch or whatever it is, right? This is a game that just echoes no matter the outcome, no matter, who's good, who's not. The outcome of this game is just plastered everywhere throughout the state. So I don't know if it's big for game attendees, but everywhere else, I think it's huge inside the state.
I mean, for Texas, this is kind of the one thing you can do to mitigate the season you've had. I mean, and it's not the outcome of this game will not, in and of itself, will not cost you recruits, but A&M's going to the playoff. If you can hand them their one loss in the regular season and keep them from winning an SEC championship, that helps.
Yeah, and back to this one, playing young guys in bowl game and getting a head start in the portal, maybe one of the few things about looking forward to about not making the college football playoff, getting a head start in the portal.
It's the biggest silver lining as far as I'm concerned. And play the young guys in the bowl game. I mean, I think we got to remember there are going to be guys that are going to probably get ready to hit the portal. You're going to have guys that have draft decision to make, seniors that do they want to play in the bowl game, draft eligible guys. Do they want to play in the bowl game or do they want to just go ahead and get ready for the draft? Yeah, it's not really like you're playing young guys because, oh, hey, let's get ready for next year. No, you're probably going to be playing young guys because that may be all you have at that point.
That's probably a good point. So, look, I know the portal is still it opens up January 2nd. It's a ways away. There's quite a list of guys that we're monitoring that, to your point, Jeff, if they opted out of the bowl game, Texas would be, pretty thin at some key positions. So it's going to be interesting. And this is the first year in quite a while that Texas has had to deal with exactly this, because for the most part, people are fighting to stay with the team battling for a championship. So that's something to monitor for sure over the next month or so.
I did see this question from Randy as well. The defense is giving up 30 plus on the regular now, so Texas needs to get like 35. They only need 31 technically on A&M to win. I mean, is this, and then also, is it possible that the Texas offense can score 40 on ampersand you? I like that one a little bit more than
yeah, it's possible.
I think it's. I mean, Arkansas scored how many on A&M? 42. I mean, the Arkansas does have a great offense, but they only scored how many on Texas? If we're sitting here comparing
37.
apples to apples.
Oh, we're doing that?
Yeah. I mean, one of those was a garbage time touchdown. So
transitive property is a dangerous thing. No, but I'm
got a lot of transitive property in this one. I don't know.
Dude, look, I mean, I just said it, Pablo, earlier. Like, the committee's doing that just because, like, it's going to be more palatable if Michigan does beat Ohio State to put the number 15 team, move them into the top 10, than it would be to take like the number 16 or 17 team and have them jump a bunch of teams. Like, it's just, to me, it's just optics.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we'll hear from our last sponsor, Andy Ludicky, one more time. Stuck in the corporate rat race with 2 weeks PTO and no control over the money you can make or your schedule in general? Call Andy at myperfectfranchise.net. He will take you through a process to identify a business that will not only fit your financial goals, but also your skill set. Franchise ownership isn't for everyone, but if you have a desire to take control of your destiny, call Andy or email him at andy@myperfectfranchise.net. I saw this earlier, so I wanted to make sure to answer this question. Does Nacho get turkey wet food on Thanksgiving? I honestly haven't thought of – they do make turkey cat food. Nacho's more of a chicken guy, though. I don't know if you saw the picture I posted on Twitter today. He knows the sound of me opening a rotisserie chicken bag, and he sprints and, like, waits for me to give him a piece. And if I don't give him a piece, he literally has his paws on the table waiting for a piece.
That's awesome. Our cat he knows the sound of
there he is. He's gremlin in action.
Our cat Amanda's figured out the sound of, like, when I open like a thing of lunch meat, like if I'm making a sandwich, like he knows, like, that drawer opens and, like, it doesn't matter where he's at, I'll hear his claws clicking and he'll want some ham or turkey or whatever.
Yeah, that's the same thing with Nacho. Also likes deli meat. Did you know cats are carnivores? So they technically, like, have to eat meat. They're technically carnivores.
I mean, I guess if you look at, like, expand that out to, like, lions and panthers and whatnot, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. So your domestic house cat, make sure you give him some turkey on Thanksgiving. Just no seasonings. Huh. CJ's over there like, why are we talking about cats right now?
Right. The more you know.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's just about all we have time for. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure to tune in to Coffee and Football tomorrow morning, bright and early. But for On Texas Football, I'm Amanda Atwell. That's Jeff Howe and CJ Vogel. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night and hook 'em horns.
Hook 'em.